I should have known something was off when he didn't help me pack. Mark was always lazy when it came to the things that mattered to me, anniversaries, birthdays, that time I had food poisoning, and he still went to his buddy's poker night because, and I quote, "You'll be asleep anyway." But this was supposed to be different. Our dream trip. 2 years of me saving, planning, pinning sunset photos of Bali to a secret board he never even bothered to look at. And yet, there I was, alone on our bedroom floor, folding his stupid linen shirts while he scrolled through his phone like the trip was just another errand. The suitcase was open, half full, my favourite swimsuit tucked in the corner like a promise. I remember laughing to myself, thinking, this is it. This is the trip that fixes us. Maybe it was naive, but I actually believed it, that turquoise water and private villas could stitch back whatever was unravelling between us. I even packed his favourite snacks, the overpriced cashews he always pretends he doesn't love but eats the entire bag in one sitting. Pathetic, right? Then, his phone buzzed. I didn't mean to look, but it was face up on the bed, lighting up with a name I knew too well. Lena. His just a friend ex. The one who always needed him at midnight. The one who accidentally sent him a selfie on our anniversary. My stomach dropped before I even saw the message. And then, there it was. A novel of text, the kind he never sent me. I'm freaking out. I don't know who else to call this. Can you please come over? And just like that, his face changed. That guilty flicker in his eyes, the way his thumb hesitated over the keyboard, like he was calculating how to lie to me this time. I didn't even need to ask. Everything okay? I said, voice too light. Like, if I pretended hard enough, it wouldn't be happening again. He didn't look at me. Yeah, just something came up with work. Work, not even a creative lie. I almost laughed. Then, his phone rang. Of course it did. And of course, he answered, walking out of the room like I wasn't sitting there, with his half-packed suitcase, like my heart wasn't cracking open in real time. I caught fragments. Calm down. I'll be there. And then silence. He came back 5 minutes later, shoulders tense, mouth already shaping an apology I knew by heart. Babe, listen. Let me guess, I said, folding another shirt too carefully. You have to go. He had the decency to wince. It's just for a few hours. We'll still make the flight. I stared at him. Really stared. At the man who'd forgotten my birthday last year, who'd missed my sister's wedding for a work thing that turned out to be a basketball game with his ex's brother. At the man who swore Lena was just a friend, even though she treated him like a backup plan and he let her. And then, like a reflex, I heard myself say, okay, like it was fine. Like I hadn't spent months imagining us in Bali, like my heart wasn't screaming enough. He kissed my forehead, God, the pity of it, grabbed his keys and left. The door clicked shut, and that's when I made the decision. Not with tears, not with screaming, just quiet, furious clarity. I zipped up my suitcase, left his half-empty one on the bed, and walked out the door. The airport taxi was 5 minutes away when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't look. What could Mark possibly say now that would matter? Another weak excuse? Another "I'll make it up to you" that would dissolve into nothing, like every other promise he'd ever made? But something bitter and curious made me swipe the screen open. And there it was. Not an apology, not even a pretense of guilt. Just 4 clinical words. We'll reschedule. Something came up. No explanation. No, I'm sorry, just reschedule. Like our trip was a dentist appointment. Like my heart wasn't still pounding from the adrenaline of walking out, of choosing myself for the first time in years. I stared at the message, waiting for the hurt to hit. But it didn't. Instead, something sharper took its place. A cold, clear certainty. He didn't even ask where I was. He didn't wonder why I hadn't fought him, why I hadn't cried. He just assumed I'd fold, like always, that I'd sit at home waiting for him to grace me with whatever scraps of attention Lena hadn't claimed. The taxi pulled up. The driver popped the trunk, eyeing my suitcase with a raised brow. "Just you?" "Just me." The words settled into my bones like a revelation. I slid into the back seat, the leather cool against my skin. My phone buzzed again. Mark, finally realising silence wasn't the reaction he'd expected. "Are you mad?" I almost laughed. Mad? Mad was too small a word. Mad was for when he forgot to take out the trash or when he'd cancelled dinner plans last minute. This was something else. This was the quiet before the storm, the split second before a bridge collapses under its own weight. I typed out a reply, deleted it, typed another. Then, with a slow exhale, I settled on the truth. No, just done. I turned off my phone before he could answer. Let him chew on that. Let him wonder if I meant the trip or him. Outside the window, the city blurred past. Street lights, neon signs, the ordinary world moving on like nothing had changed. But everything had. Because in that moment, I realised I wasn't just going to Bali. I was leaving him behind. And I wasn't looking back. The airport was chaos. Families hugging goodbye, businessmen barking into phones, a chorus of boarding calls echoing overhead. But I moved through it all in perfect, eerie silence. My hands didn't shake as I handed over my passport. My voice didn't waver when I confirmed, yes, just one passenger. I felt untethered, like I'd slipped outside my own body and was watching some braver version of myself do all the things I'd never dared. Then I saw them. A couple at the gate next to mine, fingers tangled together, laughing over some private joke. She leaned into him, whispering something that made him press his forehead to hers. The kind of effortless intimacy I'd stopped believing existed outside of movies. A year ago, that might have shattered me. Today, it just crystallized the truth. I'd never had that with Mark. Not really. I'd had convenience. I'd had whatever was left over after he'd given everyone else his best. My phone buzzed in my bag. I didn't need to look to know it was him. Probably finally realising I wasn't at home, that his key might not even work when he tried to slink back in. I imagined him standing in our empty apartment, staring at his half-packed suitcase like it was some unsolvable riddle. Where did she go? Good. Let him wonder. The gate agent called for boarding. As I stood in line, a notification flashed on the screen of the woman in front of me. A text from Lena. My breath caught. A ridiculous coincidence, of course, but for a second the universe felt like it was laughing at me. Then the woman typed back, "Miss you, babe." And the spell broke. Not my Lena, just some other ghost, haunting some other woman who didn't yet know she deserved better. I turned my phone back on just long enough to send one email. To Mark, subject line Bali Villa confirmation, with nothing in the body but the address and dates. No explanation, no hope you're happy with her, just the facts, like he was a client I was politely firing. Then I powered it off again, savouring the click of the screen going dark. The jet bridge stretched ahead, a tunnel to somewhere new. Somewhere mine. Behind me, a child wailed about forgetting a stuffed animal. The parents sighed, debating whether to run back. I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward, rolling suitcase trailing behind me like a loyal dog. No turning back. No second thoughts. And when the plane's wheels left the ground, I didn't cry. I smiled. Somewhere over the Pacific, turbulence rattled the cabin, hard enough to knock over the drink of the businessman next to me. He cursed, scrambling for napkins as ice cubes skittered across his tray table. I didn't move to help, just stared out the window at the endless expanse of clouds, feeling the plane shudder beneath us like a living thing fighting to stay airborne. The flight attendant made an announcement, just a little rough air, nothing to worry about, but the woman across the aisle gripped her armrests until her knuckles bleached white. I envied her fear. At least she still believed there were things worth holding on to. My fingers itched for my phone, for the mindless scroll that would numb the quiet screaming in my chest. But I'd left it in my bag, turned off, because if I saw even one more of Mark's pathetic attempts to backtrack now that he'd finally realised I wasn't bluffing, I might have screamed loud enough to get myself arrested. The businessman sighed dramatically, still mopping at his soaked pants. Hell of a way to start a vacation, huh? I turned slowly to look at him, at his receding hairline and wedding ring tan line. It's not a vacation, I said. It's an escape. His mouth opened, then closed. Smart man. The captain turned on the seatbelt sign again as we hit another patch of turbulence. The anxious woman across the aisle whimpered. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back, letting the plane toss me around in my seat like a rag doll. It felt good. It felt real. For the first time in years, I wasn't carefully calculating my reactions to make someone else comfortable. I wasn't swallowing my anger like a bad pill. I was just feeling. And when the plane finally steadied, when the captain came on to say we'd be landing soon, I realised something terrifying and wonderful. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the turbulence, not of being alone, not of whatever came next. The wheels touched down with a squeal of rubber, and as we taxied toward the gate, I made myself a promise. However this ended, whether it healed me or broke me completely, I wouldn't go back to who I'd been. The doors opened. Hot, humid air rushed in, thick with the scent of frangipani and jet fuel. I took my first step onto the tarmac. And just like that, I was free. The heat hit me like a physical force as I stepped out of Ngururai Airport, wrapping around me in a damp embrace that immediately made my clothes cling to my skin. Taxi drivers called out in broken English, waving laminated price lists, but I walked past them all, dragging my suitcase behind me with a newfound determination. The villa had sent a private car, one last splurge I refused to feel guilty about, and when the driver held up a sign with my name misspelled, I didn't even correct him. Just me, I said, tossing my bag into the trunk. The drive was a blur of unfamiliar colours and sounds. Motorcycles weaving between cars like schools of fish, roadside stalls selling fruits I didn't recognise, towering stone statues draped in checkered cloth. The air smelled like salt and incense and something sweet I couldn't name. I rolled down the window and let it all rush over me, filling my lungs with air that carried no memories of him. When we turned down a narrow lane lined with frangipani trees, the driver grinned at me in the rearview mirror. First time in Bali? I hesitated. First time doing a lot of things. The villa was even more breathtaking than the photos. A private oasis tucked behind high walls, with a plunge pool that glittered under the afternoon sun, and an open-air bathroom where orchids spilled over the edges of the stone tub. The staff had left a welcome drink on the table, condensation pooling around the glass, and a note that read, "Welcome to paradise." I took the drink and walked straight to the edge of the infinity pool, where the water seemed to spill into the jungle below. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rang, low and resonant. This was the moment I was supposed to feel guilty. This was when I should have wished Mark were here to see it with me. But all I felt was relief. I raised my glass to no one in particular and took a long sip. The drink was tart and sweet with a kick of something strong underneath. Perfect, just like this, just like me. I didn't bother unpacking, just stripped down to my swimsuit and dove into the pool, the water closing over my head like a baptism. When I surfaced, gasping and laughing, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink I didn't have names for. Somewhere in the world, Mark was probably still scrambling, still trying to figure out how to fix this. But here, there was nothing to fix. Here, I was already whole. I floated on my back, staring up at the darkening sky, and let the current carry me where it wanted. For once, I didn't fight it. The morning sun hadn't yet burned off the mist clinging to the jungle canopy when I heard the first crash. A string of French curses followed, then laughter, bright and unapologetic. I wrapped the hotel robe tighter around myself and stepped onto the terrace just in time to see a woman emerge from the villa next door, balancing a tripod and a camera bag while attempting to kick a fallen coconut out of her path. "Bonjour, neighbour," she called, spotting me. Her hair was a wild tangle of beach waves, her sundress on inside out. "Unless you're a professional coconut remover, don't come closer. They're deadlier than my ex." I surprised myself by laughing. "I'll keep my distance." She dumped her equipment onto a lounge chair and extended a hand. "Ava, professional disaster and occasional travel blogger." "Clara," I said, shaking her hand, "currently impersonating someone who has her life together." Ava grinned. "Best way to start." "You here alone?" The question should have stung. Instead, it felt like an invitation. "Yeah, you?" "Always." She plucked a mango from the fruit basket on her table and tossed it to me. "Breakfast, best in Bali. Eat it over the sink like a savage. Trust me." That's how I found myself perched on a bar stool in Ava's kitchen, juice running down my wrists as she showed me photos from her last shoot. Hidden temples, underground caves, a midnight swim with bioluminescent plankton. "You're staring," she said, licking mango pulp off her thumb. "Because you're living the life people pretend to have on Instagram." She snorted. "And you're not." I looked down at my bare feet, still pale from months of being stuffed into office heels. "I think I forgot how—" Ava snapped her fingers. "Then we fix that today. You're coming with me." I should have said no. Should have retreated to my villa, to the safe solitude I'd planned. But the reckless energy that had carried me here still thrummed under my skin. "Where?" "Everywhere." By noon, we were weaving through rice terraces on a motorbike, the wind stealing my screams every time Ava took a turn too fast. By 3, we were drinking lukewarm bintangs at a beach shack, toes buried in the sand as she taught me how to spot toxic positivity in travel captions. "You can't just say a living my best life under every post," she said, flicking my forehead. "Where's the depth? The pain? The I cried in a hostel bathroom because I forgot how to be happy." I choked on my beer. "That's specific." She winked. "All the best stories are—" As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the ocean in molten gold, Ava dragged me to a cliffside bar where a man with sun-bleached hair and a camera slung over his shoulder was arguing with the bartender in rapid-fire French. "Luke," Ava called, "stop terrorizing the staff and meet my new victim." He turned, and for one dizzying second, I forgot how to breathe. Not because he was handsome, though he was, but because of the way his gaze lingered, curious and unhurried, like he actually wanted to hear whatever I might say next. Mark had never looked at me like that. "Clara," I managed. "Luke," he said, and when he took my hand, he didn't let go right away. "Ava didn't tell me she was bringing reinforcements." Ava shoved a cocktail into my free hand. "She's not here to rescue you. She's here to outdrink you." Luke's thumb brushed my knuckles once before releasing me. Challenge accepted. The stars came out. The drinks kept coming. And somewhere between Luke's terrible magic tricks and Ava's worst karaoke, I realized I hadn't thought about Mark for hours. The realization hit like a rogue wave, sweet and terrifying all at once. This was what freedom tasted like, and I was just getting started. Ava and Luke were chronic oversharers. Every sunset, every cocktail, every stumble out of a beach bar documented in real time for their followers. But as Luke framed yet another shot of Ava dramatically licking salt off a margarita glass, I quietly slipped my phone back into my bag without unlocking it. "You're not posting anything?" Ava squinted at me. "Not even for close friends?" I shrugged, stirring my drink with the paper straw. "No signal." Luke snorted. "Bullshit. You're hiding." "Or," I countered, I'm actually experiencing things instead of staging them. A slow grin spread across Ava's face. Oh, she's vicious. I like it. But it wasn't about being vicious. It was about keeping this, the golden hour glow on Luke's stubble, the way Ava's laugh sounded different here than in her videos, the unscripted magic of a moment that belonged only to us, from becoming just another performance. Back at the villa, I plugged my phone into charge but left it face down. Let Mark wonder. Let him scroll through empty feeds searching for traces of me. The silence was my answer, louder than any angry post, any passive-aggressive caption could ever be. When I finally dreamed that night, there were no texts, no missed calls. Just the ocean, endless and unconcerned, whispering the same truth over and over. You exist even when you're not seen. I believed it. Back in the city, Mark sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his reflection in the dark screen of his phone. The apartment was too quiet without the usual sounds of me moving through it. The hum of the coffee machine at dawn, the soft rustle of pages turning as I read late into the night. Even the air felt different, stale and lifeless, like the place had already forgotten me. He'd called 17 times, sent 23 texts, not one response. His thumb hovered over Lena's contact before he tossed the phone onto the rumpled sheets. She'd been useless, after all, her emergency, just another flimsy excuse to keep him on her hook. And now, because of her, because of his stupid inability to say no, he was alone in a way that felt heavier than simple solitude. The suitcase I'd left behind sat untouched in the corner, his favourite shirt still folded inside. He hadn't unpacked. Couldn't. It felt too much like admitting this was real. His phone buzzed, a notification from Instagram. His stomach lurched until he saw it was just a meme from his college group chat. He almost swiped it away when a familiar laugh caught his attention. There, in the tagged photos of some travel blogger's Bali post, was a shot of Ava grinning under a waterfall, and just behind her, half cropped out but unmistakable, me. Sun-kissed and smiling in a way he hadn't seen in years, holding a cocktail like it was a trophy. His breath left him in a rush. She actually went, not just went, thrived. While he'd been sitting here drowning in guilt, I'd been living some fantasy he'd convinced himself we'd get to eventually. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. I hadn't just left him behind. I'd replaced him. He scrambled for his phone, fingers shaking as he pulled up my profile. No new posts, no stories, nothing but that same old bio, just passing through, that suddenly felt like a warning he should have heeded. The silence was worse than anger, worse than tears. It was indifference, cold and absolute. And for the first time, Mark understood. He wasn't being punished. He was being forgotten, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. Mark's fingers trembled as he typed out another message, deleting and rewriting the words 3 times before finally hitting send. We need to talk. Please. The little read receipt appeared instantly. She'd seen it, but the typing bubbles never came. He paced the length of our apartment, his reflection fractured in the darkened windows. The place smelled like stale takeout and regret. His laptop sat open on the coffee table, a half-completed flight search to Bali blinking accusingly at him. Lena had called twice today. He'd sent both calls to voicemail. The realization had been creeping up on him for days, slow and insidious. He'd gambled on the wrong woman. Again. His phone buzzed with a notification from his credit card company. The villa reservation cancellation fee. He'd tried to get our money back after I left, but the resort had refused. Non-refundable, the email said. The irony wasn't lost on him. At 3:17 a.m., drunk on cheap whiskey and cheaper self-pity, he did something pathetic. He screenshotted the tagged photo of me in Bali and texted it to me with a single question. Who's taking care of you? As if I needed taking care of, as if he ever had. The reply came faster than he expected. Not from me, but from an unknown number. She's doing just fine. Stop bothering her. It was signed with a camera emoji. Mark's face burned with something hotter than anger. Shame. The kind that settles deep in your bones and reminds you exactly how small you are. He threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall with a satisfying crack, but the relief was temporary. Because in that moment, he understood the terrible truth. No amount of grovelling could fix this. No grand gesture would bring me back. Some losses are permanent, and this one, he'd earned it. The morning of my last day in Bali, I woke to golden light streaming through the villa's bamboo blinds, and Luke's arm draped casually across my waist. Outside, the ocean murmured against the shore like it was keeping secrets. I carefully extracted myself, slipping into the sarong Luke had tugged off me hours earlier. My phone, untouched for days, sat charging on the dresser. When I powered it on, the notifications flooded in. Mark's increasingly desperate messages climbing from confusion to anger to something resembling grief. I scrolled past them all until I found what I wanted. The photo Ava had taken yesterday of me standing barefoot in the surf, the sunset painting my skin in hues of fire and honey. I attached it to a new message. No words, just the image, sent cold and clean like a knife between ribs. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Appeared again. I could almost see him on the other side of the world, scrambling for the right combination of apologies and promises that might undo this. The dots kept dancing. I turned the phone off mid-typing. Let him choke on his unsent words. Let him marinate in that exquisite uncertainty. Somewhere beyond the villa walls, a fisherman sang as he hauled in his nets. The scent of frangipani and fresh coffee drifted through the open window. Luke stirred in bed, calling my name with sleep-rough affection. I left the phone on the dresser and went to him. The best revenge wasn't cruelty. It was this. Living so fully there was no room left for him in my thoughts. Not even as an afterthought. The wheels of the plane touched down with a jolt that startled me awake. For one disorienting moment, I expected to see palm trees swaying outside the window, to feel Bali's humid embrace waiting beyond the cabin doors. Instead, great tarmac stretched endlessly under a muted sunrise, the familiar skyline of home looming in the distance like a forgotten obligation. Around me, passengers unbuckled their seatbelts with the restless energy of people returning to responsibilities. A baby cried several rows back. Someone's phone pinged with the sharp tone of a work email. The ordinary sounds of a life I'd walked away from 2 weeks ago. I reached for my carry-on, my fingers brushing against the hand-woven bag I'd bought at a roadside market. Inside, sea glass and a single perfect conch shell that still smelled of salt water. Evidence that my escape hadn't been a dream. The airport corridor seemed colder than I remembered, the fluorescent lights harsher. I braced myself as I powered on my phone. 37 missed calls, countless messages stacking up like a tower of apologies waiting to topple. I silenced it without reading a single one. Customs moved slowly. The officer stamped my passport with a bored thud. Business or pleasure? Clarity, I said without thinking. He blinked, then smirked as he handed back my documents. Welcome home. The arrivals hall buzzed with reunions, families embracing, drivers holding signs, a man on one knee proposing near baggage claim while bystanders cheered. I adjusted my sunglasses and walked faster. Then I saw him. Mark stood near the taxi queue, shoulders hunched against the morning chill, holding a bouquet of peonies, my favourite, the ones he always claimed were too expensive. His eyes locked onto mine with a desperation that might have shattered me before Bali. Now, it just made me tired. You came, he said, thrusting the flowers towards me like a peace offering. I didn't take them. You shouldn't have. His face did something complicated. Part relief that I'd spoken to him, part dawning horror that I wasn't falling into his arms. Clara, please, let me explain. A horn honked. My Uber had arrived. I stepped around him, the shells in my bag clicking together softly. A tiny, private music. Wait! His hand caught my wrist. Just tell me, was there someone else? I laughed then, loud enough that a few travellers turned to stare. Not at his question, but at the staggering arrogance of it. That after everything, he still thought this was about jealousy. About him. The Uber driver popped the trunk impatiently. I yanked my arm free. There wasn't enough of you to warrant someone else. The car door closed with finality. Through the window, I watched Mark stand frozen on the curb, the peonies wilting in his grip. As we merged onto the highway, my phone buzzed. A new message from Luke, just landed in Marseille. Attached was a photo of his hotel balcony overlooking the Mediterranean. Next adventure. I smiled, running my thumb over the sun-drenched image. Home didn't have to be a place, or a person. Sometimes it's just the space you carve for yourself between goodbye and whatever comes next. 3 days passed before Mark showed up at my doorstep. I knew it was him before I even looked through the peephole, that hesitant knock, the way his shadow shifted nervously on the welcome mat. I considered not answering, but some part of me needed to see this through, to watch the understanding finally dawn in his eyes. I opened the door wearing the sarong from Bali, my skin still sun-kissed, my hair bleached lighter by salt water. His gaze swept over me like he was memorizing a stranger. You look. He trailed off, swallowing hard. Happy, I supplied. He flinched. Good. The flowers were back. Tulips this time, as if he'd Googled how to apologize with Flora. I didn't invite him in, but he stepped forward anyway, his shoulder brushing the doorframe. The familiar scent of his cologne hit me, that woodsy blend I used to love. Now it just smelled like someone else's nostalgia. I messed up, he began, the words clearly rehearsed. I took you for granted. I let Lena... Don't. My voice cut sharper than I intended. Don't blame her. This was always you. That bouquet trembled in his grip. What do you want me to say? That I'm an idiot? That I'll never speak to her again? Just tell me what will fix this. The desperation in his voice might have swayed me once. Now it just highlighted how little he understood. He still thought this was negotiable, some relationship hurdle we could overcome with the right combination of words and gestures. I reached into the woven bag hanging by the door, the one from Bali, now holding my keys and loose change, and pulled out the postcard I'd bought on a whim. Wish you were here, not really, in cheerful script above a cartoonish beach scene. His face crumpled when he read it. That's it? After 3 years, I get a fucking postcard? I held his gaze as I placed it in his free hand. You don't get to decide how this ends. For a heartbeat, I saw real anger flash in his eyes, the kind he'd never shown Lena no matter how many times she jerked him around. How ironic that I finally earned his full attention by walking away. The door closed between us with a quiet click. No slamming, no dramatic final words, just silence, and beyond it, freedom, vast and glittering, like the ocean at dawn. Weeks passed like pages turning in a book I couldn't put down. Mark's calls dwindled to silence. Lena, according to mutual friends, had already moved on to someone new, some poor soul who didn't know he was just her placeholder until the next crisis. I deleted their numbers without ceremony, the act as effortless as tossing expired spices from the cupboard. My apartment smelled different now, like the vanilla candle Luke had mailed from Paris, like the fresh turmeric root I'd learned to cook with in Bali. The sarong hung on my bedroom door, a vibrant slash of colour against the neutral walls. Sometimes, when the city noise became too much, I'd run my fingers over the fabric and remember how the ocean sounded at dawn. Then came the envelope. Thick, expensive paper, my name handwritten in ink that shimmered slightly under the light. Inside, a single photograph. Me, mid-laugh on a Balinese beach, the sunset gilding my silhouette. No note. Just Luke's initials etched in one corner and a Parisian postmark. I traced the edge of the photo, smiling. On the back, 3 words. Greece next. The shells I'd collected clinked together as I reached for my laptop, pulling up flight prices with one hand and texting Ava with the other. Her reply came instantly. Already packed? Outside my window, the city pulsed with ordinary life, people rushing to jobs, to lovers, to the safe routines they clung to. I used to be one of them. Now I was the woman who went to Bali alone, the one who didn't look back. And this was just the beginning.